Hello, folks. Welcome to this latest chat in Pathlight Thrive Hive, or YouTube, if that's where you're watching it after the event. So my name is Paul Wolstenholme. I am the director of Pathlight Limited, and I am a mental health first aid instructor and also a psychotherapist. And today we've got two special guests, Sam Myrtle and Sam Milne, and we're going to be talking about our experience of Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat come course. It's probably inaccurate to call it a retreat. It's billed as a course, but it's perhaps a bit of both. So we'll be talking about how that was for us, what it is, and the ups and downs of that very powerful 10 days that we had recently. And do feel free to ask any questions during the session. And just before I bring our guests into the studio, I'm going to do a little bit of marketing stuff. So first of all, if you're enjoying this Facebook group, Pathlight Thrive Hive, you can help to make it sustainable by becoming a member for £7 a month, or just donate £3 anytime you want. So if you get something out of today's session, feel free to bob over to buymeacoffee.com/thrivehive and just drop me £3 or become a member for £7 a month. That'd be much appreciated. Thank you very much to those who are already members. Also, I'm going to be I am organising and participating in Hadrian's Wall Challenge, which is going to be a mammoth trek across the length of Hadrian's Wall path this summer, 84 miles in 4 days. So we're raising money for 3 mental health organisations in the Oldham area where I live. And if you would like to get involved, either as a participant or a volunteer, you can follow that link there. Or if you'd like to donate to raise money for the 3 wonderful organisations, then there's a GoFundMe there link as well. I'll put this up later on in case you don't catch it just now. Also, Sam Milne, who is one of our guests today, is going to be co-facilitating a retreat in Spain next month. So it's called Beyond the Bounds. It's a 7-day trauma retreat. And there's a link there to the Facebook page and the event. We've just got a small number of places left if you'd like to join that. So if you've got any questions during the session tonight or any comments, feel free to pop them in the chat and we will read them or respond to them as appropriate. So thanks for being here. We're going to now bring in our 2 special guests. So we have Sam Milne and Sam Myrtle. Welcome to this session and welcome to Pathlight Thrive Hive.
Hello. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. So Sam Milne, would you like to go first and just introduce yourself, say a little bit about who you are, what you love, anything about your personal or spiritual journey that you'd like to share with the group?
Yeah, so my name is Sam. My passions are music. I really love music. For me, it was the first ever form of meditation that I experienced, jamming with other musicians and just finding that peace of mind. So that's a really big love of mine. But I really love anything creative where you can really envelop yourself into it. So I really love cooking because it engages all of your senses. So you really focus in on what you're doing. But I work as a massage therapist. That's another big passion of mine because having that connection with other people, it's deeply rewarding for me. And it feels like it's part of my healing journey as well. Regarding my spiritual journey, it's definitely had some key moments in my life where I really felt a big turning point and a big change of direction onto a different path. But since being a kid, I've always felt some form of like other energies around me. I really felt connected to the elements as a young kid. I remember having a little pendant and believing that I could control the weather using this pendant. And I've always felt some form of connection to like spirits or believing in reincarnation. But yeah, I've definitely had some big turning points, usually from when I've not been focusing on myself and not looking after my health, and focusing a lot on when I used to work as a bar manager, I was definitely not looking after my health at all. I ended up having like a mental breakdown from just overworking and smoking and drinking and really not looking after my health. But actually from a psychedelic trip, taking LSD really made me realize how little I'm looking after my mental and physical health. And that really propelled me into making all these changes I needed for my life, such as getting involved with meditation and yoga, changing my lifestyle. So I became vegan back then, which was around 8 years ago now, because I believe that I really needed to change everything what I was doing because it was not going on the right path. But ever since then, it's been little gentle nudges back into the right direction if I find myself slipping off path and again not looking after my health. I feel like there's some forces beyond our control help to just give us a little nudge, helping us, encouraging us to open our hearts and reconnect to ourselves again.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. And very often, in my experience and what I've heard from other people, it is those times where we slip off the path, or we're not looking after ourselves, or some acute trauma or difficult event. That is when we can have some kind of development in our spiritual life, or be open up to some new kind of path, or returning to a path. Yeah. So for you, has meditation been a big part of your spiritual journey to date?
So meditation definitely has played a big role, especially for my first Vipassana experience, which I'm sure we'll be talking about a little bit later on. But it's usually been meditation in the form of music or like external connection with things. So more of like a mindfulness sort of meditation, where I'm really just, I guess, becoming connected to like an external object of meditation through music, for example. So that's been a really big, I guess, anchor into the present moment and bringing myself out of my head. Because for as long as I could remember, I used to believe that you were your thoughts. And I was really just living this life in my mind of like erratic thoughts and overthinking and like anxiety and loads of different thoughts racing around your head. And I believe that was who you are ultimately. But meditation's definitely in various forms has just brought me away from that. Yeah.
Anchor, that's a good word. Thank you. Okay, so Sam Myrtle, we'll move on to you now. Welcome once again. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, however you like, Sam, around what you love, what's brought you to where you are today, where you're going, anything around your personal or spiritual journey that you'd like to share.
Yeah, of course. So I am I'm a final year medical student, and it's a 6-year course, so it's been a long time. And I'm only 24, and getting into medical school, like there's stuff that goes in before that, so that's kind of what's been driving me for my entire adult life so far. Sort of going into that profession and everything. And related to that, I'm sort of very interested in psychology and neuroscience and sort of understanding how the mind works and how people work, and wanting to bring that to my life and sort of going forwards. Potentially going into psychiatry in the future as a sort of strong sort of career option or career focus, I think. And so yeah, that's that. And then in terms of the things that I love, it's quite hard to define, but yeah, I think that I love lots of things. I love learning. I love learning about the world as much as possible. Sometimes I find it's quite sad that I can't just learn everything and spend my life just learning all there is to learn from people, from books. I love reading. I love nature, and similar to what Sam was saying, I love things like cooking, where you can just be creative and find ways of experimenting with food and just finding new ways of doing things. Really, finding creative ways of experimenting with how you can live and how you can sort of explore in that way. So yeah, and then in terms of the sort of spiritual journey, it's also difficult to define, but I think that that's something that's relatively new for me. Um, Up until October last year, October 2023, I wouldn't say that I was a particularly sort of spiritually inclined person. I spent most of my life going from being raised Christian as a child, then losing all that and becoming a bit of a rampant atheist in my teenage years, and then sort of becoming agnostic, as I think most people in the UK tend to be. I then After my first Vipassana retreat back in October last year, that was the sort of beginning of, I'd say, my sort of spiritual journey, and really becoming tuned into the idea that there is more to life than what is material and that kind of thing. And I've been on two Vipassana retreats in the last since October last year, the most recent one being in March this year. And that has been sort of through meditation and through that kind of practice. That has been how I've been sort of trying to explore that. Um, Much more I could say, I'm sure. But to keep things brief, that's kind of what it's been so far. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Sam. And that leads us nicely on to Vipassana or Vipassana. And what is it? That's the first question for those who are not familiar. And I suppose, in a nutshell, it is a meditation technique. And the aim of it, and I'm reading from the website here, it's a technique that will eradicate suffering. And for me, there are two elements to it. One is tuning into your body and noticing your bodily sensations, and twinning that with equanimity, which is about just accepting whatever you experience without labeling it as negative or positive. Is that how you guys would summarize Vipassana, or have you got anything to add to that?
I like it. I like the term observing reality as it is, which coincides with what you say about equanimity and just, observation.
Yeah. And the aim of the Vipassana technique, which is something that was developed by the Buddha, is mental purification. And the idea is that if you practice it frequently or regularly, it will help you with life's challenges and be able to deal with life in a more calm and balanced way. So again, on the website, it says it's an art of living that you can use, and it will have positive effects on your life, but also to wider society. And I'm wondering, for you two gents, is there anything that you've noticed in yourself from doing Vipassana or other meditation practices that's changed how you interact with the world, or how you feel about your contribution to the world?
Perhaps Sam would like to take this one.
It's a very broad question, I think. As I was saying, this is all quite new to me, but I would say that after my first retreat, there was a very profound change in how I felt about life, really, and how when you are observing, because Vipassana is all about observing bodily sensation, which if you haven't really been through the Vipassana course and experience what it's really like to look much more closely at bodily sensation and what's going on within, whenever you're going about your day-to-day life, you're sort of similar to what Sam was saying earlier, being lost in thought, being carried away by the constructs that you have, and the sort of habitual patterns of behavior that you have, being able to much more closely look at just how you're feeling, being able to truly be aware of how certain things make you feel, rather than just acting on habit and acting on what has become your sort of instinctual behavior. That has really helped me a lot with things like not getting lost in emotion, not doing things out of um some what a person said makes me feel this way, so now I'm going to react this way. But being able to sit with the emotion and not react instantly, I think it's made me a much calmer person, and to be able to react much in a much more balanced way to sort of the vicissitudes of life and things that come, things that come my way. And in a really, in a really real way, I think it's what sort of a year ago, something that might have triggered an emotion in me, maybe anger, maybe fear, etc., whatever anxiety. Now being able to watch that, and rather than sort of cling to that emotion and think, now I'm in this state, now I'm angry, I'm going to react with anger. Now I'm fearful, now I'm going to act with fear. Being able to sit with it and observe it with, this equanimity that is also, that's being cultivated by regular Vipassana practice, it allows you, I think, to not get swept up by emotional states, essentially, to really act in a balanced way and do what is actually right. So I think that, it is a very powerful tool in that way. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. So it's for you, it's about changing your habitual patterns of how you respond to the world, and instead of reacting emotionally or getting caught up in those emotions or overthinking, it's about that equanimity of acceptance, really, of being able to respond in a wiser way.
Exactly. It's if something does provoke an emotion in you, nowadays I find that a lot of the time, something that a year ago I would have gotten into an argument with someone, I would have engaged with something. Now, if there's a moment of anger, immediately I'm realizing I can feel that this is just I'm being pushed into this mode of reacting because of the way that I'm feeling, because of the way that I think that the term used in Vipassana is Vedana. The bodily sensation that you have. Is it positive? Is it negative? It can also be neutral, but to react because you're having a negative bodily sensation that you don't want to have, that you interpret or label as negative, and then you try and avoid that situation or fix that situation. Sometimes there isn't something to be fixed by avoiding that. What you have to do is accept it and work with it that way. And I think that that's really quite a helpful, useful tool to have on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Sam Milne, anything to add to that?
I'd like to bounce off what Sam was saying. So I find when I have a regular practice of Vipassana, I can find it helps me feel more water-like. So not so holding on to these things and ideologies, kind of just bouncing off things and being a lot more fluid in my day-to-day life, and feeling less stagnant, I guess, helping me feel like I'm being more, like just being in the present. So more water-like, I would say.
Nice and flowy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, so are you happy to share, gents, what it was on this occasion that took you to Vipassana? I know both of you have been before, so perhaps Sam Milne, first of all, what drew you back again?
It's kind of hard to answer, really. I don't really know why. Like, I don't remember making like a particular one reason why I drew myself back to Vipassana. I think probably I definitely needed a bit more like reigniting the flame for meditation and Vipassana, because my practice has slipped off quite a lot. But I've been needing that for a couple of years now. So I don't know why now. Maybe things just aligned quite nicely for it to just flow and for me to find that time to commit. I've been traveling a little bit here and there around Asia and different countries. So maybe it's just the timing and everything's just aligned quite nicely to bring me back. But overall, reigniting that flame for meditation and more discipline. That's what drew me back.
Yeah, and that's the key, isn't it? As I said earlier on, to success with anything like this, it is that discipline of the daily practice. And often a challenge can be when you come away from a retreat, maintaining that practice because of your responsibilities in real life, if indeed this is real life. And I suppose if you haven't got the structure and the support mechanism around you, as you have when you're on a retreat or a course, it is perhaps harder to maintain that discipline. So Sam Myrtle, do you want to share anything about what brought you back to Vipassana for a second time?
Yeah, of course. it's kind of it's a different. So instead of being sort of trying to come back to reignite something, it was more the idea of trying to add more to really stoke the flame and try to make the practice of Vipassana something that really stuck. Because I found in my life that the things that stick and continue with me are things that I kind of really get into and really sort of become obsessed with almost. Like I want to try and do as much of this as possible right now so that it will stick with me. Because after my first retreat, which was in October last year, I just came away with the sense that it was, well, kind of the real thing, really. It was one of the most I had one of the most profound experiences I'd had of my entire life, and all the insights that I'd had. I, doing reading in the sort of weeks afterwards, I realized that sometimes insight can be, you can have it, but it can fade away if you don't sort of re-experience that insight. And I wanted to try and live the practice, live the insights that I'd had, and I wanted to try and make as much progress as possible in a shorter time as possible, which is probably maybe quite a naive way of thinking about something like spiritual practice, to try and make sort of quote progress, where however you can define that. Um, but I essentially wanted to try and get as much meditation experience in as possible so that it would become something that stayed with me. So more or less immediately after my first retreat, I started thinking, when can I go on another one? Um, I even considered going on one that had some places open up in Sweden, um, straight away in December or January, I think it was, as soon as I possibly could. But I ended up giving it a bit more time to sort of integrate what already happened. So really, it was that. It was just how beneficial the first retreat I had was, that made me want to, it was more or less as soon as I could, go on another one. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And yeah, for me, it was my first time on Vipassana, and generally I go on some kind of retreat twice a year, and I've been wanting to do Vipassana for a while, and I actually booked on a few years ago, but then COVID struck, so all the courses got cancelled. So it was a long time coming for me, and although I have attended retreats in the past which have had periods of silence, I've never done 9 or 10 days in a row. So that was a challenge for me. I do like a challenge. And I wanted to see what the new technique was. It was new to me, and what I could learn from it and take away. So perhaps it would be useful to say a little bit more about the structure of the course, perhaps not going into too much detail that might put people off, but who wants to take this as to how the days pan out, or how the 10 days pans out?
Sure. Yeah, I could take from.
Go for it.
So besides the last day, day 10, which is the silence is lifted, about, is it 9 a.m. or I can't quite remember, just after the morning sit kind of. Um, so every day is sort of silence. You're meant to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and meditate for about 2 hours, and then have some breakfast. And there are 3 group sits daily where there'll be further instructions. Sometimes the Goenka, who gives the teachings, which is a recorded teaching. They'll sort of progressively giving you more and more in pieces of the technique as you go by. And for the first few days, the first 3 days, it's what's called Anapana meditation, or Anapanasati. So basically just breath awareness, to try and develop a lot of concentration, or samadhi is the term that's used. Samadhi just means sort of concentration, or that kind of thing. So that you can then go on to actually do the Vipassana technique after day 4, when you get those instructions. And yeah, so waking up so early, meditating for about 8 to 10 hours a day. No dinner, especially if you're an old student. You don't even get any fruit or anything. With the new students who only, it's their first course, get some fruit at dinner time. I think it's 5 p.m. for dinner, for the tea time. And yeah, so I'm not sure I've explained that perfectly well, but that's more or less how it works.
Yeah.
So it's 10 days of that, essentially waking up really early, meditating for all those hours in a day, with 3 sort of mandatory group sits that you've got to be in the hall for. But besides that, you can either meditate in your room, in the hall, or you can meditate out in the grounds or in the woodland walking area, etc. So yeah, that's really how it works. And after a certain point, you're encouraged to try and maintain sort of constant awareness, constant sort of as much continuity as in the practice as possible. So even when you're walking around, trying to maintain awareness, either doing the Vipassana sort of body scanning or to maintain sort of anapana breath awareness of the breath. So that's kind of how it plays out over the days.
Yeah, really good summary. Thank you, Sam. And Sam Milne, anything to add to that around how it was structured and what the precepts were?
I don't know if you mentioned about the silence. Maybe you did. I missed that, but it's fully done in silence. So the whole 9. Yeah, you said initially that you can break silence on the 10th day. Yeah, I remember that. So yeah, 9 days of silence.
Should have made it more clear. Yeah,
and it really helps to bring that. It really does help to bring stillness to the mind when you are in silence, but it's also can be very challenging at the same time, because you realize how erratic your mind can be when you're in the silence. So yeah.
And it wasn't just silence, was it? It was no communication. So you're not supposed to make eye contact with any of the other students, and no gestures or anything like that. So I know you guys have done it before, but did you have any challenges around the strict nature of no communication?
I did this time. I found that I really craving connection with people and community. It's what I'm seeking more and more of, like, these days. So I felt stepping back into the silence was kind of, it almost felt like stepping in the opposite direction to what I was craving in my day-to-day life, and more of that connection and community with people. So for me, it was a lot more difficult this time. And I found myself, again, craving to talk to people and to be with people and sharing experiences. More difficult.
Yeah, thanks for that. And similar for me, I think I found the first maybe 6 days actually quite a blessing, that I didn't have to do any small talk, and it was an opportunity to go inwards and connect with myself. And I remember the previous retreat that I went on last summer was, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted, whether I wanted to connect with others or connect with myself. And I wrestled with that for a few days, and I realized actually I can do both on this retreat. So I did both. But with Vipassana, I think the intention is that you're not there to connect with others. It's very much an inward journey. And as you say, it can be challenging. When I got to around about day 7, I was craving human connection when I found myself walking around the woodland areas in between the meditation sessions. Instead of looking down at my feet, I was looking up and trying to make some eye contact and desperately wanting to connect with another human. So that's all part of the process, I'm sure. Sam Myrtle, how about you? Did you have any challenges with the silence?
I think on my first retreat, it was very difficult. I think I even once or twice I had to leave the hall because some things that were coming to mind were so funny that I wanted to tell someone, and I actually was going to laugh because something had popped into my head that was so amusing. And actually happened on this last retreat as well, which something that wasn't actually in retrospect very funny at all, but just was, I think, maybe being so understimulated that it seemed so hilarious at the time. And that kind of thing. But that's probably just my personality. But on my first retreat, it was very, very difficult. But on the most recent one, I didn't find it as challenging. But another thing is you're not allowed to really write or read anything. That I found quite challenging, because I'm always, ever since this was actually just a habit that I've picked up over the last couple of months, but it's been very, very helpful for me. Ordering my thoughts, I essentially carry around a notepad wherever I go, a little A6 notepad, and I'm more or less constantly writing. I keep a diary of everything I do and any interesting thoughts that I have, and even things that I pick up from other conversations with people. And to not be able to do that was really difficult. I think that I found myself, because you're not meant to actively think as either. You're not meant to be spending your time trying to hold on to thoughts that you're having or insights that you're having. So it was a lot of process of just letting go of thoughts, no matter how interesting or alluring it was to try to engage with thought. I think the purpose of the silence is not just to give you a distraction-free environment, but the idea is that it's that silence of speech, mind, and body, so that you're trying to still the mind, as Sam said, and that I found very challenging. Trying to bring my mind into stillness. Not really, the speaking wasn't difficult, but not being able to take out any thoughts from my mind and put them out into the world. that I found quite challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. And did you have any things that you thought, oh, you had some kind of insight or an intention or a realization that you thought, I must remember this, and not having the ability to write it down? And did you subsequently remember it when you got home?
I actually think there were quite a few things I forgot. Yeah, that was a tricky one. And this was a thing that was quite a point of difference between my first retreat and my second retreat. And uh, also, I think I forgot to mention part of the reason I wanted to go on the second one was because on the first, I found that I was doing a lot of active thinking and also trying to, because there was no way to write things down, trying to hold on to the insights that I had and having all the space for introspection, being able to think through things in life clearly, then having a sort of action plan when I went home. I was holding in my head so many pieces of information that I would sort of recite and try to memorize. And so on my first retreat, I was doing that. But I tried not to do that on the second retreat and just think anything that's important, I will remember. If I don't remember it by the end, it's not important. But actually, I found that I didn't remember everything. I didn't have quite as much clarity of or a plan in my mind after this most recent one. So yeah, I found that I did forget things. Just having to accept and let that go was probably part of the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that phrase, letting go, because I think that, again, is a lot of what Vipassana is about. It's letting go of thoughts, letting go of emotions, letting go of any judgment of anything that you're experiencing, actually.
There was one. Sorry, go ahead. There's a quote that someone actually gave me a piece of paper that had a quote written on it in a calligraphy pen because between my first retreat and this most recent one, I served for not the whole course, but you can go and actually volunteer on these Vipassana courses. And I know Sam Milne, I believe you said you've done that before as well. And so I went and did that for half the course. And someone who was there gave me a quote from someone who was a Vipassana teacher. I think it was something along the lines of, "For those who have grown morally debauched, the sky does not pour down sufficient rain." And I was stood in the rain trying not to hold on to thoughts, and I just had this moment of when I need to think, the thinking will come. But right now I can just be here and accept this moment and just accept what's actually going on, and hopefully when I need to think, the thinking will come. So that was a bit of an insight that I had to do with letting go of trying to always think through things. And yeah, anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, thank you for that. So shall we move on to just a general summary of what your experience was like this time? And Sam Milne, if we can come to you, what was it like for you? What did you experience on this particular Vipassana retreat?
So I found this one actually more difficult than my first one. Because of this retreat I'm planning and other things that are going on in my life, I find I was getting a lot of creative thoughts, and I really was craving to just play my piano again or to write down some notes. And I found my mind was very much, before the Vipassana, very much busy doing things, all wholesome things like piano, going to the gym, for example, but still keeping myself very busy and preoccupied. And I guess before I felt like I had peace of mind because I was doing all these things and I felt peaceful in my mind. But then from the Vipassana, it kind of made me realize that a lot of the peace was coming from these external objects again, and distractions. Well, it would be called distractions in Vipassana, I believe. So yeah, I found it more difficult this time. But there was a few moments which were really beautiful and really kept me going, because quite throughout the 10 days, maybe not for the whole 10 days, but I was getting a lot of thoughts coming into my head of like reasons why I should leave early. So like my mind is like wanting me to escape and feeling like I put myself in this prison and I just want to break free. And so it's coming up with like loads of different ways to why I should leave early. And some of them were rational, but other ones were like completely irrational. So it was interesting to see how irrational the mind can go when it's really wanting to do something. And but because of like a few beautiful moments, it made me feel like I was in the right place. For example, probably my highlight of the Vipassana retreat was when I was sitting on this bench, and it was the first bit of sunshine we had, maybe in day 2 or day 3, or maybe day 4, one of those days. But a robin flew and landed on my lap, and it was just staying on my lap for a moment and hopping around, and it caught me. We caught eyes of each other, and it just flew off. And it just felt very like anchoring again, and it felt like sort of like a message to just keep on going and just to trust and go through the processes. And it felt like a lot more shadows coming up, shadow side. So like anxiety and grief, even grief for people who have not even passed away yet, just kind of feeling that preemptive grief, if that even exists. So a lot of different thought processes, a lot of like stickiness, getting unsticky. So it felt like overall it was a very difficult time, but felt like it was also needed to shed some layers. And I felt like it very much coincided with the weather as well, because most of the time it was raining or grey and gloomy. A few moments of sunshine, but mostly rainy and gloomy. And I felt my emotions were like really in sync with that. So I was feeling like gloomy when the rain was there, and hearing the rain on the roof while you meditate, and it's like emphasizing that gloominess within. So I found that was like part of the process as well. Because the last 2 times I was there, it was quite sunny. It was a bit more joyous and blissful, and feeling like I had quite deep experiences in the sense of like visualizations and feeling like intense sensations. But this time was definitely a lot tougher.
Thanks for that. So really in tune with nature, not just the seasons or the weather, but the birds as well, you know. And there was one day where out of the blue, we suddenly had a load of snow. Do you remember that? And the snowflakes were the biggest snowflakes I've ever seen. Within the space of about half an hour, all the grounds were covered in a layer of snow. So that was a beautiful moment. And likewise, what you said about the robin, Sam, I noticed in general that the birds around the woodland walks were so tame. They just seemed to be in the middle of the path, and if you were walking towards them, they wouldn't move. And it was just to observe that. And I wonder if that was something about the energy of the place or the energy of the people, so that the birds don't have the fear that you would find in a more urban environment, perhaps. Yeah. So, Sam, Myrtle, how about you? How was your experience this time? What were the highs? What were the lows?
So there were ups and downs. It's a wave. There are going to be ups and downs. I had lots of experiences that I could go on and on about for a long time. So just tried to pick one or two that were the most sort of profound for me, or most insightful. I think there were one or two that, having gone away and thought about a lot, and about the technique, and also as I was saying earlier, sort of being interested in like psychology and neuroscience, and having a background in that, because I did that for like my undergraduate degree and everything, and I have been very interested in sort of how do these experiences happen. How do we sort of what are the mechanisms behind this kind of thing? So when you're becoming more and more aware of your body, for example, the sort of like scientific term for that is like interoception, and there are all sorts of I know there was one book that you were talking about, the body keeps the score, that actually I've just got that yesterday. I'm going to read that now. There's lots of people looking at sort of how interoception, and your ability to feel what's going on in your body relates to all kinds of things with mental health, and also just how the mind works, and how you can sort of store emotional memories in your body and that kind of thing. So that's one thing, sort of. And another thing is sort of when it comes to equanimity, the way that I had started to conceptualize that is the way that our minds work, our brains having certain parts that are able to exert top-down control over, like, basically fear circuitry. So like our prefrontal cortex, for example, can like inhibit the amygdala. If the amygdala is screaming and is very averse to something, you can, as humans, we're very good at inhibiting that. And also sort of the idea of metacognition, of being able to tell where your attention is. And most people don't know where their attention is most of the time. It's just wandering. And when you get really deep into meditation, when you get that sort of really deep, like, samadhi concentration that you try and cultivate, that really improves. And I think that this is actually something that Goenka, says during some of the discourses and teachings. This idea of, the three things is like Suttamaya Panya, um, Chintamaya Panya, and Bhavanamaya Panya, which basically means, in order, sort of wisdom that you've heard from someone, wisdom that you've sort of intellectualized, and then wisdom that you've experienced. I feel like I've done so much of that second one, of sort of intellectualizing all these things, reading other people's experiences, and reading even like the sort of research behind how these things work. But I actually, having experienced some of these things, one of them is an example of when you're sort of interoception and your ability to tell what's going on inside your body, you can break things down into subtler and subtler and subtler levels. And I think I did that much better in this most recent retreat than my first one. And actually, it's almost like when you do that, you're becoming aware of your heartbeat, for example. Like, most of the time, I can't feel my heart beating in my chest, and some people are able to do that all the time because they have a lot of interoceptive awareness. And to be able to suddenly feel that, or to feel air rushing into your lungs, and to be able to feel what's going on inside, in your abdomen, etc., with your guts and all that kind of thing. It's almost like there's a subtler level of sensation that I just wasn't aware of, that's always there. And when you sort of bathe the surface level sensations that your mind is drawn to with attention, you become aware of things that you're usually not able to. And when you do that, you start to get insight and be able to sit for longer periods with deeper and deeper sort of memories coming up, and not reacting to them or running away from them, because you're more sort of, yeah, basically awareness becoming exponentially sort of more tuned into what's going on inside. So that was an experience I had. I think it's called a banganayana is the word that's used, a sort of when your felt sense of the body starts to dissolve because you've given it so much awareness that you start to almost peel back a layer and feel what's going on inside. That, I think I experienced that from the description of it that Goenka sort of gives, and that was, I can't really describe it. It was phenomenal, really. So that was probably the most powerful experience I had most recently.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. So it sounds like it's been a kind of transfer for you from, I know from what I know about you, you're a very curious person. You like learning. You like assimilating information and that cognitive understanding of what's going on here. Why is it happening? And you're a seeker, I think. And it seems like a switch for you from that kind of cognitive understanding to a more bodily awareness and tuning in to what's happening within your body. And yeah, I think Goenka, the teacher, says a lot about that third level of knowledge, which is just from experience. So you don't have to believe that this is the best form of meditation or this is the spiritual route to take. It's just an experiential thing that if you try it, if you invest in it, and you will see the changes, you'll see the benefits, and that experiential knowledge, from my experience, is usually a lot more powerful than reading about someone else's experience or conceptualizing it intellectually. Yeah. So just moving on from that bodily awareness, samkaras, am I saying it right? Samkara, is that the right word? Yeah. So there is this concept of blockages within the body or negative areas of tension, trauma, pain, whatever it is. And by bringing awareness, as you said, Sam, to that area, you can develop equanimity to it. And also what I experienced is a dissolving. So I was aware, even before I went to Vipassana, of a blockage in my throat chakra. And when I got deep into the process towards maybe day 6, 7, I was focusing on that area and I could really visualize that blockage. I could see it. I could see the texture of it. And as I focused on it, it started to dissolve. And it felt to me like there was a liquid running down my esophagus, and the blockage there felt considerably smaller. So that for me was that idea of the proof is in the pudding, that there's something here, whether it's a psychological thing, a psychosomatic thing, or The Body Keeps the Score, that book that you're about to read. There was something there. And by just bringing my attention to it and bringing equanimity to it, it started to dissolve. Did either of you experience anything similar to that around the sankharas or other bodily sensations?
I felt sensations of grossness, what would dissolve into smaller sensations. Often there wouldn't necessarily be a memory attached to that, but sometimes I would get old memories coming up into my head sporadically. Ones I've not thought of for decades will just come up into my head. So maybe that's also related to these samskaras in the body and things we're holding on to. But I definitely felt dissolving, and one of my favorite things which I went through on the first Vipassana was like really just transforming that perception of pain and discomfort and feeling like such a huge gross sensation in my back, and realizing that I can transform that and be equanimous to the pain and then just treat it as a sensation. And I found that really helped me to then dissolve through the pain and just find some more peace and comfort in sitting for long periods at least, and getting deeper into the meditations. And but yeah, no specific recollection of things trickling, or other than the dissolution of gross sensations into more subtle sensations.
But you found comfort in the discomfort.
Yeah, I find that easier compared to finding comfort in the lack of blissful experiences. So I find I have a craving for the highs and the bliss, and I find it easier to be equanimous with the discomfort. So for whatever reason that is, we're hedonist creatures maybe. Yeah, and I suppose that's natural, but that's one of the traps that we can fall into, isn't it? That the Buddhist teaching is saying that a lot of suffering comes from craving or aversion, or all suffering comes from either craving or aversion. So if we're craving those high moments, those blissful experiences, which I think, if I remember rightly, you experienced on your first Vipassana, and you were kind of disappointed that you didn't experience that again this time, and that in itself is a cause of suffering. Yeah, for sure. I guess it's just catching yourself when you realize that, I was kind of expecting something like that. And that probably put a block on experiencing that, because kind of chasing a dragon sort of thing. Yeah. So, Sam Myrtle, did you at any point feel that you wouldn't make it through the 10 days? Were you packing your bags at any point?
This time, no. First time, I think maybe 3 or 4 times I was almost out of there. But this time, I think that I almost wanted it to go on longer. Actually, I was quite peaceful. I think I was very peaceful by about day 7 or 8. Whereas day 7 or 8, my first one, I was up and down all over the place. Some moments extremely peaceful, having those sort of like moments of just bliss, and other moments just completely agitated and wanting to scarper and jump over the fence, get out of there. But this time, most recently, no, I was actually just, it was a lot more stable until right at the end, when I felt, there was a bit of a pressure towards, or attention towards, going back into sort of the real world, that I felt. If anything, the only time I had sort of any sort of discomfort around the experience was right at the end, when I wanted to be there longer, I suppose. Which, yeah.
Some craving there. So yeah, I'm thinking about the 5, what are they called? The 5 hindrances to presence, which I'm reading from my notes here. So the 5 things that will drag you away from meditation, or the experience that you are aiming for, I suppose, with meditation. And they are sensual desire, ill will, sloth, restlessness, and doubt. And I probably experienced most, if not all of those, during the 10 days personally. And twice I was very nearly packing my bags. I was nearly out of there and had I not been giving you guys a lift home, I may well have left. So, I found it very challenging at times, the first few days in particular. And it wasn't until I surrendered to the process, which didn't happen until day 5, that I was able to reconcile myself to staying for the 10 days. And I know at the beginning, on the first evening, they ask you to sign up to the 5 precepts of we're going to not communicate, we're going to lock away our phones, we're going to stay here for the 10 days, we're not going to harm anything, we're not going to take any substances and all of that. And I consciously didn't say, I'm definitely going to stay here for the 10 days. I gave myself the out of, if this isn't for me, I'll just leave. And it's like I say, it wasn't until day 5 that I finally surrendered. And that was a big moment for me in just relaxing into it and letting go of that idea of, there's discomfort here. I could be at home ticking off things on my to-do list and stayed there and got a lot of rewards. So what have you two taken away from this one? What would you say were the key benefits for you of your recent Vipassana experience? Let's go to Sam Myrtle first, if you're ready.
Quite a few things, really. I think it sort of for the first month or 2 after my first retreat, I was meditating every day for quite significant chunks of time. It was really helpful. And for whatever reason, life just gets in the way, and you always find an excuse. And I stopped having a daily practice, and it was becoming more sporadic. And it really did sort of reignite my just my belief in the fact that the technique will help, and meditation really is something that I want to do, as a daily habit. And also, I think it just gave me a sense that I kind of, having that space and having the silence on a retreat like that, it really did help clear away a lot of almost everything everything that had happened between the 2 retreats that had taken away from the sense of peace I felt at the end of the first one. Going into the second one, I had just a couple of months worth of stuff to sort of work through, and it took me a couple of days to do that, and then I felt really peaceful again. And it kind of gave me a sense that I'm doing all right in life right now, but if ever things get really, really overwhelming, I know that that's always there. And I going on a retreat and getting space and meditating a lot, even if it has its really challenging points when you have to sometimes, go through really difficult moments, or you have to, say, if you re-experience something that has caused pain, it will always be there. And knowing that I can always kind of do that and get that sense of peace and really realign is really, really helpful to know. So really, I think that's that. It kind of made me more confident in the fact that this kind of daily meditation practice is incredibly beneficial for life, and wanting to really stick with it like that. So,
Sounds like a really comforting, reassuring safety blanket that if you do kind of fall off the wagon, you've always got your practice, and also you can go back and do further retreats if you'd like to. Great, thank you. And Sam Milne, how about you?
So it's definitely helped to reignite that flame I was needing to reignite. So even though my practice hasn't been consistent since this retreat again, I still find it very much there, and I find I can take it also whilst I'm walking, and really just connect myself back to my body and back to my breath and observation. So I'm finding I'm able to take that outside of the seated meditation, which has been very, very helpful. And like Sam was saying, you find excuses not to do it as well. So that's been coming into play. But another big thing for me was getting away from my mobile phone, because realizing how much it's zapping my energy. Sometimes, for example, if I'm tired at the end of the day, I'll think, I'll just be on my phone for a little bit. I'll wait for my mind to recharge. But in reality, it never recharges from being on your phone. It only drains it a little bit further. So I'm getting more awareness of like things that are affecting my energy. So it's refreshing to be reminded of these things again. Like I think these things we need constant reminders for. So it's always good to have another reminder, and to allow yourself to take that slight separation from these things, which are not necessarily helpful for the things you're aiming for in life or wishing to achieve or work on.
Yeah. Thank you. So it's about connection and disconnection in a way, reconnecting yourself to those things that are really important and are going to serve you on your path, and disconnecting from those things which might be tempting and addictive, like food, phones, Netflix, whatever it is, and noticing how that impacts you around with your energy, your body, but also, is it serving me on my path? So yeah, for me, I took away a lot of that reconnection to my body. I've never felt so attuned to my body. I was really noticing those sensations, noticing my chakras, tuning into those, and also tuning into nature, reconnecting with nature, reconnection with spirit through those meditation practices. And yeah, really lovely disconnection from the busy mind of thinking, and I've got to do this, I've got to be this certain way. So yeah, I've come away with a lot of creativity, motivation, focus, and determination. Actually, I felt really excited when I left. Here's some changes I'm going to bring into my life and to my psychotherapy practice and what I'm going to do with my business. And yeah, it felt really wonderful and re-energizing. So the return to real life, as we mentioned, for me, it was a little bit bumpy. And Sam, Myrtle, you've said, or both of you said, that there've been some challenges with maintaining your practice. What's been the most difficult thing for you of readjusting or bringing what you learned at Vipassana into your daily life now? Sam, Myrtle, do you want to go first?
It's what's been tricky about bringing Vipassana into daily life? It's hard to answer, really. I think that I haven't been as consistent as I was a couple of months ago after my first retreat. Really, I haven't been anywhere near as consistent, and that's just, I think it's because I've been traveling around a lot more, not in any one place, and it's really hard to get into a sort of daily routine. But I feel like once I am sort of back into a sort of daily routine of being in the same place every, more days of the week, etc., then it'll be easy to get into the practice. I think that it's I've been living, my life's not been as compatible with meditation practice recently as I'd like, but actually that's realizing that has made me try and be in one place more for longer periods of time, so that I could get into those habits. So that, because having the first thing you do in the morning be just meditate is actually the best way I find to start the day, and so really just trying to align things that way has been not the easiest, but yeah.
Yeah, so something about the structure and the supportive setting, and for you, a big part of that is being in the same place or having some structure to your life. Okay, Sam Mills, how about you? Any challenges of return to real life?
Probably my bed and how comfortable it is in the morning when I wake up. That maybe getting more sleep than I probably need or could function on, because obviously I'm Vipassana, you're not getting 8 hours sleep, you're getting maybe 4 if you're lucky. Just readjusting to that, waking up even an hour earlier than my patterns, which are ingrained into me for years, is the most challenging part, and finding that slowly. I wake up a little bit later day by day, and I need to bring it back again. It's kind of like this little bit of a battle to wake up earlier. So, and like Sam was saying, doing it in the morning, I find is the most beneficial for me. So, part of me feels like, oh, I've not done it in the morning. It's 1 p.m. I don't feel like doing it now because it's not the right time of day to do it. Even though that's obviously not true at all. You can do it any time in the day. But just little bits of like thought processes in my head which are tricking me out of doing it. So that's been the most challenging part.
Yeah, comfy beds and tricky thoughts, which are just thoughts. Yeah, thank you for that. And for me, I think I always experience when I come back from retreat. Have I got some background noise there? Anyway, we'll carry on. I always find the intensity of real life a bit rude when I come back from retreats. That, you know, the pace of life, and even driving back from Vipassana, I was thinking, gosh, everyone's driving so fast, and he's very close behind me, and it all felt very intense. And we went to some services to charge the car up, and I thought, look at all of this stuff for sale. None of this is important. This is all just silly nonsense. But yeah, I found the intensity of life and I don't know if aggressive is the right word. I suppose my heart chakra was very open. I was very vulnerable. I was very at peace. Generally, my life is quite slow and spacious anyway, but it was even slower and more spacious on the course. So yeah, seeing the intensity of how other people are around me and how I can get caught up in that, it felt like a very different type of energy, which grated on me a little bit, quite a lot actually. Okay, what else? So we've said that the secret to success with this is not just to go on retreat once. It is the daily practice. That's where the benefits are. And of course, in real life, you're not going to be meditating for 10 hours a day. Very few people have got the capacity to do that. But what they recommend is to do an hour twice a day, if I got that right, once in the morning, once in the evening. And yeah, I haven't been able to keep that up, and I knew I wouldn't commit to that. But I think it is the case of the more you do, the more benefits you get. But even a small meditation each day will bring benefits. Would you agree with that, gents?
Yeah, and finding it in your day-to-day life, not just in the seated meditation, whilst you're walking about or driving or whenever you've got a moment to just connect yourself back to your body. And I think that's that continuation of practice outside of a seated meditation.
Yeah, really good point. Thank you. Anything to add, Sam? Oh, yeah, you're on mute, Sam.
Sorry, that's because the background noise was coming from me, so I turned that off for a second. Yeah, I along similar lines. Any amount of time spent at contact with bodily sensation, I think, is helpful. And actually, compared to how it was before I ever tried or started with Vipassana, where just tuning into bodily sensation in a random part of the body, say if I was going like, what's the back of my neck feeling like right now? I'd have no idea, sort of like a blank area. But over time, I think it becomes more and more of a sort of, you can make that the mind's habit to rest attention there. And the more you train, the more you do Vipassana, essentially the mind becomes able to do that. So 2 hours a day was also very, very tricky for me, and I'm not sure if I'll probably ever really be able to do that. But I think that there's something to part of as I was saying earlier, the mind always finds a reason not to meditate. And I've realized quite recently, actually, if you do 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, that's also very helpful. If you've planned to do an hour and then you realize you can't do an hour, then the mind's going to think, oh, well, let's just not do that now. But sitting for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, etc., can be very beneficial. I think it's just whatever time you can find is really good. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. So is there anybody that you think you wouldn't recommend Vipassana to, or would you say it can be beneficial to anyone? Whoever wants to take that.
It's well,
I feel it's a tricky one because would you like to go, Sam?
What's that? Are you or am I?
Okay, I'll take it then. I think it's a tricky one because I feel like it can be beneficial for everybody, and I think it could also be beneficial regardless of the circumstances people may be going through. But they don't have the right capacity to hold people if they're going through like a challenging process. They don't have specialists like who can help. So it's really tricky to answer that one. I feel like it does have the capacity to be beneficial to everybody, but it's a case by case basis whether it's the right time for that person.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. And we all have to fill in a form and self-declare that we are in a suitable place mentally and emotionally to attend this kind of retreat. And I know of one person on our retreat who perhaps wasn't and found it very challenging, but ultimately stayed till the end and got a lot of benefits from it. Sam, Myrtle, did you have something else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think it was along similar lines, but I think sometimes if people have lots and lots of things that they're repressing with avoidance techniques, such as sort of someone who can't sit in silence and do nothing because they immediately seek out some kind of distraction, like, maybe someone who's constantly on their phone or seeking out sort of social engagement to try and avoid thinking about things or just sitting with their emotions, because there might be lots of trauma that they've been through and that kind of thing. It can be very, very difficult, and quite a few people do end up leaving midway through the course because it's gotten so challenging. And so yeah, I think that people who have like that kind of thing, where it's, if the idea of sitting in silence for 9 days feels like it would be completely impossible for you, I don't think that's going to change when you're in the surroundings and you get there. I think that you probably won't sit through to the end. But I think that those people probably are the ones who benefit from it most. But like, it might be a process of working through it or working up to it, working up to being able to sort of meditate at home, and not find it completely distressing and that kind of thing, because it can be quite distressing to be in silence and not have anyone to sort of reach out to for support in that time.
Yeah, thank you. And that certainly resonates with what I've shared with my friends and family about my experience. And a very high proportion of them have said, "Oh, I could never do that. I could never sit in silence for 10 days or even sit in silence for 10 hours of one day." And it's quite an incongruous thing to contemplate, I suppose, if you haven't got a meditation practice or been on retreat before. It is jumping in at the deep end if that's going to be your first experience. So yeah, I like your guidance there, Sam. Okay, so I think we're coming to an end, but is there anything else, gents, that you'd like to share around anything around Vipassana, anything that we've missed out that you think would be useful for people to hear?
I'd like to hear about your experience, Paul, actually, with your throat, because you said that you're working on opening the throat chakra. I'd love to hear how that's going for you and how your practice is affecting that, if it is working with that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, so it is something that I've been working on with my therapist for some time, the blockage in my throat chakra, and my understanding of it is that it's to do with expressing my truth. And I could really feel that when I was sitting with Vipassana, when we got to the stage of doing the body scans and tuning into those areas of blockage, it felt, it was visceral, and just focusing on it during those 10 days, but also since then, I've noticed it shrinking, and I can still feel it now, but it's a lot smaller. And for me, it isn't just about the meditation practice, it's about what I'm trying to do is twin some meaning onto that. So I'm thinking psychologically and with my past history as well, what does this mean for me? Why is it there? And what do I need to change in order to continue working on this area of difficulty, I suppose? So yeah, I've been, my Vipassana practice has definitely fallen off since the last couple of weeks, certainly. But when I do focus on it, it is helping, and I'm also bringing in what I need to express more in my daily life. And I'm seeing that with a lot of my relationships, my personal relationships, and also when I'm working with my clients, I'm becoming more congruent and more challenging and saying those things that previously I may have held back from out of fear. So it's been a really powerful process for me, that in particular, of connecting the somatic experience, as Sam was talking about, with the cognitive understanding of what is this about, and taking it forward as a development for myself. Yeah, so thank you for that invitation. Anything else, Sam Myrtle or Sam Milnes, that you'd like to talk about, or any questions or anything that you feel we've missed? And if there's anyone out
There's
there,
much more we could talk about, but if we're running out of time, it's tricky to fit it all in, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we can continue if there's something that you'd like to share.
Nothing in particular.
Okay, all right. Sam Milnes, anything more from you?
I feel like we've covered good bases here, and we may be missing something. I'm not sure, but I feel like we've covered some good topics, key topics.
Great stuff. Thank you. So I suppose another thing for me that I've taken away is going back to the silence or the no communication. We talked about the craving for human connection, but before that even kicked in for me, I noticed a sense of camaraderie, brotherhood. I'm not quite sure what the right word is, but there was something binding us together all in the fact that we were all silent and going through our own process. I don't know if you experienced some kind of brotherhood or camaraderie in that way.
Yeah, it's like a unified personal experience, isn't it? It's like you feel like you're all on the same ship, or you're all in the same ocean, or one of those analogies of some form. And that definitely does help the experience. You feel a bit more encouragement to keep on going.
Yeah, and something that bonded us together. And, on that last day, I found it so liberating when we were able to speak and we'd all been through that really powerful experience. Everyone, I'm sure, had their own unique experience.
I'd like to talk about the transformation from on the last day, because you mentioned the snow. But before the snow, it was really heavy rain. So this like shift from the heavy rain into this beautiful snow. And I felt like that was a good analogy for my experience, at least anyway, from going through quite a lot of shedding and like shadow work, and like coming out of that, transforming it into this snow, which made everything beautiful and serene and still. So I really like that experience.
Beautiful. Thank you. Any final thoughts from you, Sam Myrtle, before we close?
No, not really. I just think as we were saying earlier about who would it be good for and who wouldn't it be good for. I think I was saying that there was a caveat that some people just wouldn't be able to stay to the end, but I just think that most people would be able to get something out of a retreat like this or an experience like this. So, as a closing comment, I would just say, I would encourage anyone who feels like it's something that they would be interested in. If you have that, because when I first heard of it, I was like, oh, that would be something I'd be interested in. But then it kind of went to the back of my mind, and then, a while later, when I eventually ended up doing it, it was one of the best things I ever ended up doing. So, I would just encourage anyone who feels like it would be beneficial for them to seek it out and really engage and really try to stick with it to the end, because I think it can be incredibly powerful and incredibly transformational. So,
yeah, I'll second that. Thank you, Sam.
I'll say that as well.
Also, we're all in agreement there. I was doing a bit of an audit of all of my, I suppose, spiritual experiences and retreats that I've done, and Vipassana is definitely in my top 5 most impactful experiences that I've ever had. And I would definitely recommend it. And for anyone who is thinking, I couldn't possibly do that, I would challenge that and ask, invite you to challenge that yourself, because if you want to do something enough, you'll find a way to make it happen. And you might be surprised at what you can achieve, actually, if you push through the discomfort and those negative thoughts that your brain is telling you that you're not capable of. So, 3 thumbs up here. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. What I will do now is, let me just bring up the retreat again that you're going to be running, Sam Myrtle. Do you want to just say a few words about what that is?
Sam Milnes.
Sorry, Sam Milnes. Sorry.
So we'll be doing a trauma transformation retreat in Spain in May, and we'll be working through a process of shadow work, but integrating into more like light work and manifestation, doing daily yoga, working through the chakra system, I find the chakra system is very beneficial to placing things in motion for working through like trauma, for example, and transforming that into more like heart connection and community. So the retreat's very much going to be about working through shadow work and any sort of traumas and things we're holding on to, and then transforming that into connection with community and connecting with hearts with each other. So it's going to be a journey from shedding to openness.
Wonderful. Yeah, sounds great. And in hopefully the warm sunshine of Spain as well, which is always a bonus.
Yeah. Always helpful having some sun.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, gents, so we've had a comment. Thank you all for sharing your experiences and wisdom. Very insightful and inspiring. So thank you. Glad to be of service. Thanks for your engagement. Gents, I'll put you back into the green room now whilst I do just a closing thing. And if you've got time to hang around, we can have a chat in a couple of minutes. So thank you both for being here. Thank you for your time and for sharing your experiences.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you, Paul.
Okay, thank you for that, folks. I hope you found that useful. So again, just going to put up a few banners in case you want to investigate any of these things further. So as I say, I'm a psychotherapist and mental health first aid instructor. You can contact me if any of those services would be of use to you. If you found today's session useful, inspiring, interesting, and you'd like to help make this Facebook group sustainable, you can donate as a one-off £3 at buymeacoffee.com/thrivehive, or you can subscribe and become a member for just £7 per month. Thank you again to all those who are already members. And a reminder that this summer I'm putting my mind and body through another epic challenge, which is going to be 84 miles of running along the Hadrian's Wall coast to coast path. So if you'd like to get involved in that, you can be a walker or a runner, or you can volunteer to support us by carrying our luggage or helping out with logistics. There's a link there to register as a volunteer or participant, and also a link to donate to the GoFundMe, with all of the funds raised going to 3 mental health organisations in the Oldham area where I live. Okay, so that's everything from me. Hopefully it won't be quite so long before I'm back again talking with some other people to share their experiences. If you'd like to be one of those people around any kind of spiritual development, any mental health challenges that you may have had that you want to share, maybe you're a holistic health professional, or any interesting experiences you want to share around personal development, spiritual development, mental health, that's what this group is for. During the pandemic, we were having interviews several times a week with loads of interesting people. So those recordings are still in the Hive, and they're also on my YouTube channel if you want to catch up on those. But if you'd like to share your story, then please get in touch. Send me an email or a message, and we can have a chat and get you scheduled in. So I've enjoyed that today. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Take care of yourselves, and see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.